Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, death by salt.
Was this little boy given a lethal overdose?
A mother accused.
You were laughing during that interrogation.
We don't have insurance. That's a nervous laughter.
Were you abusive with this child?
No.
He's sleeping on plywood.
I slept on the sleeping bag.
On plywood. Why did you stand a 4-year-old boy naked in the yard and hose him down? It sounded like something you would see in a movie about prisoners.
Questions remain.
We just hosed him down in the backyard. You have a security camera in his room trained on him. Within 24 hours of him passing away, you're burning his sheets on the grill. You have to admit that seems odd. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. How are you? Hey, guys. How are y'all? Well, today we are talking about a shocking story that I know you have seen in the headlines. This precious young child with his innocent halo of blonde hair and sweet smile is dead. The burning question, who was this little boy and what really happened to him? Was he a deeply troubled child whose extreme behavioral issues caused his tragic death? Or did something more sinister happen? Was he given a lethal overdose of salt by a mother who just didn't want him? It sounds bizarre, but it's a story we have seen in this case and in another recent high-profile case. Young, seemingly doting mothers who, by all outward appearances, love their children, accused of poisoning them with a deadly dose of something found in every kitchen in the world.
Doctors say 4-year-old Andrew Bird died of salt poisoning. Police say that poisoning came at the hands of the couple trying to adopt him, Hannah and Larry Overton.
30 minutes before the jury would reach a verdict, they wanted to know the symptoms Andrew was likely to have experienced after drinking the mixture of Zatarans and water.
Westchester mother accused of fatally poisoning her son faces a judge.
Dramatic accusations in a Westchester courtroom.
A 5-year-old son succumbed to massive salt poisoning. Lacey Spears is accused of dumping toxic levels of sodium into his feeding tube. Prosecutors suggest she suffers from Munchausen syndrome by proxy, harming her child for sympathy and attention.
A jury finding Lacey Spears guilty today of poisoning her son with salt.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Hannah Ruth Overton, guilty of the offense of capital murder.
Every juror said they came to their decision because Hannah did not get medical help for Andrew quickly enough. Hannah spent one last emotional moment with her family.
They brought this child in their home to adopt this child. If there was a problem with this child, they could have easily called the adoption agency and said, we can't handle this child. Why would they bring a child into the home to kill him? It just doesn't make sense.
Now, Lacey Spears was convicted in March 2015, and she is still in prison. Hannah became a suspect in her foster son's death the very same day he was admitted to the hospital. Now, as Andrew lay in a coma, clinging to life, police brought in Hannah for questioning.
I gave Andrew his lunch.
What was the lunch of?
It was chili, like a stew with Zataran seasoning on it. So he was eating the chili, but he was upset. Then he finished the chili, and he got up, and he said, I want more. Started throwing a fit again. And so I got some water, and I put a little bit of the chili powder in it, and I said, do you want this? He started screaming and yelling. Then he fell to the floor. After that, he looked up at me and he said, Mom, I'm cold. I called Larry. He was shaking, and he wasn't talking. So I put blankets on him. When Larry came home, he tried to get him to react. He opened his eyes a little bit, and he said, maybe one bath will get him to come to. And so he tried to put him in the bath. It didn't help. I grabbed the camera because it was by the bed and flashed the flash on his eyes to see if his pupils were reactive, and they both reacted right away. I tried to call my friend in Oklahoma that's a paramedic to see if there was anything else I needed to do. My husband carried him to the car. When we were almost to the urgent care clinic, he stopped breathing.
Well, that video was later shown in court. Hannah Overton was charged with capital murder, and she was convicted. She spent 7 long years behind bars, but she has always maintained she did not kill Andrew and continued to fight for her freedom. Then almost a decade later, she was released on appeal, and ultimately the charges against her were dismissed.
Hannah Overton was convicted of capital murder back in 2007. That was for the salt poisoning death of her foster son, Andrew Byrd.
She actually spent 7 years in prison, but today she is free.
The break in their case came from the prosecution critically re-examining medical records of the child, and that his death could have come from a current medical condition.
One of Overton's attorneys said the turning point in the case came when local attorney admitted he'd made a mistake by not calling a salt poisoning expert to the stand in Hannah's defense.
District Attorney Mark Skirka has announced that he will not pursue capital murder charges against her for a second time.
All charges against Overton have been dropped. The case is closed.
It still feels like it's not real. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, what I was charged with is a horrible crime. Anybody who hears that somebody did something like that to a child should be upset. But I would hope that they would have the courage to look at the evidence and see the truth. I know that there's people that aren't ever going to want to understand the truth.
Okay, Hannah, it's good to meet you. You have had so much going on, and so many questions still remain about Andrew's death. And some people think you got out on a procedural glitch or a loophole or whatever, and that's just simply not true.
Right.
So tell us about Andrew and how you first came to know him and what he was like.
Andrew was a foster child that was going to our church. His foster mother came and brought him to church, and he was in our Sunday school class with our girls. And he was praying every day for a forever family. And my daughters came home and they said, well, why can't we be his forever family? And so we began the procedures of taking adoption classes and all that.
So what was he like when you first met him?
He's adorable. He's the cutest little boy. He was very sweet and loving, but he's also a handful.
Yeah. And a handful in what ways?
His mother had done meth while she was pregnant, and he had been born with fetal alcohol syndrome, and so I knew that there would be some issues.
So what were you seeing, just kind of list-wise, what were you seeing from him?
Tantrums, and the tantrums that he threw were different than tantrums that my kids threw. I mean, I had 5 other kids, but he would, like, throw himself to the ground without catching himself, you know, and then the obsessive eating and picking at himself.
When you say eating, he would eat massive amounts if he was allowed to, but he was also eating non-nutritive things, right?
Right.
He was eating stuffing in the mattress,
right,
paint chips, carpet fuzz.
Exactly.
And we know there's a disorder called pica,
yes.
And he may well have fit that.
Yeah, I had spoken with this caseworker about getting him tested for that.
You know, just very simply, it's an abnormal desire to eat substances not normally eaten. Had his previous foster mother observed this behavior?
Yes.
And did she tell you this is what you're going to see?
No.
All right, so coming up next, from charred sheets on a barbecue grill to sleeping on a plywood bed frame, Hannah explains the evidence that first cast her in a shadow of doubt. She has some explanations for those things that people need to hear and understand.
He has started throwing these temper tantrums. He started pooping on himself, like on purpose. And we asked him why. He said he was mad. He has gotten up in the middle of the night and gone in the kitchen and gotten food and stuff. We've had to, like, really been watching him.
And later, were you abusive with this child?
No.
But you stand a 4-year-old boy naked in the yard and hose him down with a hose. That seems harsh.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
The woman accused of pushing her husband to his death.
Was it murder?
Your daughter is saying there was a struggle. He stumbled and he fell backwards.
Or self-defense?
The media made it out to be the rich girl, the military guy, the plastic surgery family. She's in shock.
Shock, no shock. Would that catch your attention?
I don't deserve to live.
Did you push him out that window?
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
That's tomorrow.
What's happened the last month?
He has started throwing these temper tantrums. He started pooping on himself, like on purpose. He would poop and then he would take it and smear it on the bed and on here. And we asked him why. He said he was mad. He has gotten up in the middle of the night and gone in the kitchen and gotten food and stuff. We've had to, like, really been watching him.
Why?
To make sure he doesn't get anything that he can't get, or that, you know, that would hurt him.
Well, the night before Andrew became deathly ill, a series of events unfolded that made investigators question Hannah and Larry being the loving foster parents they claimed to be.
He started pooping on himself. We took the sheets off of his bed, took everything outside and threw away his sheets and washed down his mattress. It's out in the backyard, drying. We took his mattress away, and then he said, "Can I have a warm bath?" And we said, "No, you can clean yourself. You can clean yourself with the water hose, with the thing," because. And then he didn't want to do it, so my husband cleaned him.
Wait, explain that to me. Outside?
Yeah.
Was he naked?
Yeah, in the backyard. Okay. And with a privacy fence. Cleaned off the poop and then brought him back inside.
Where'd he sleep that night, last night?
On the floor. Part of the night, he was on his, he has a bunk bed, and we just put him on there without the mattress on the bed there. And then he wasn't going to sleep because it was too hard, so I put him on the floor on the blanket. Okay. He has they have three-tier bunk bed. He has, you know, his there with just the plywood. And I
sleep on the plywood?
Yeah. Even after, you know, I took him out of the bed and put him on the floor with a blanket, and, you know, he still didn't want to sleep. He kept standing up. "I'm not going to sleep." I said, "Why?" Because I'm mad because you took my sheets. And he said, "I didn't take them. You ruined them."
Explain to people why your husband would hose him down in the backyard instead of take him and put him in the shower.
My husband made that choice, but I do know it was, you know, warm outside, and it was, you know, he was throwing a fit, and that he was just trying to get all of the feces off of him. It was covered in it.
The sheets were covered as well.
Yes.
This was not something you could wash?
Well, the plan was to wash the sheets, and he kept putting the sheets down, and then Andrew kept going and getting into them and getting messier again. And at some point, Larry called me and he told me we had other sheets that were exactly the same, that were brand new. Bring them so that we can show him, because we're going to throw these away.
Did that help?
No.
Now, the morning that Andrew got sick, you found him in the pantry.
Yes. He was up on a stool in the pantry, and he had something in his hand. I took it away from him, and I took him down off the stool and went and got him breakfast.
Mm-hmm. And what was the last thing you fed him before he got sick?
Chili.
Uh-huh. And did he eat a lot of it?
Yes.
Like, how much is a lot for a 4-year-old?
Well, I think he ended up eating a total of 3 bowls.
And this is it Zatarain's?
Yes.
Creole seasoning, which is kind of it's sort of like a chili powder.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had that. Yeah. It's kind of a chili powder seasoning. And you put that in water and made a broth out of it. Did you taste it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. And did he Drink it?
He took a sip and then he threw it at me.
He didn't like it?
He didn't want it.
This amount is, I think, what they testified. This is how much he would have to ingest to have had the problem and the levels that he had.
That's completely insane to have that much.
There's 23 teaspoons here, and you're saying he certainly didn't take anywhere near. He took one sip of this.
Yes.
So when did you start noticing something was wrong?
Well, he was throwing a fit, and then he started telling me he didn't feel good. I had recently been in a car accident. I had a neck brace on, and I was supposed to be on bed rest.
And you were pregnant?
I was 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
So when he threw up, that's when I called my husband, and I said, you know, he's sick. Can you please come home and help me? I don't know what to do. You know, I was thinking, well, maybe he has some sort of stomach virus or flu.
What was the next stage to where you thought, this is
an
maybe
hour and a
worse?
half later, he started having problems breathing. He was breathing real congested.
Was there any point in there that you thought about calling 911?
Whenever we decided to take him in, then we did consider whether we should call 911.
Is that when you said, let's go?
Yes.
But you went to urgent care. What did they tell you at urgent care?
By the time we got there, he had stopped breathing. I did CPR.
Take me through that moment when he stopped breathing and you're having to do CPR on your own son.
It was horrible. We were stuck in traffic about, I don't know, a few yards away from the urgent care center. I was holding him in the back seat, and I just laid him down on my lap and started CPR. And he did start breathing again for a minute, but it didn't last.
Did you realize you were losing him at that point?
No.
Well, coming up, Hannah didn't call 911, but she did make another important call. She called her husband, Larry, and told him to come home. He did, and helped get Andrew to urgent care. I'm going to add him to the conversation when we come back. Was there any thought, an hour from now, this child will be in a coma? And later, their theory was the two of you straight up killed Andrew, waiting for the salt to kick in so he would die.
A beautiful wedding, a baby on the way, an argument that led to the unthinkable.
Joshua Hilberling fell from the 25th floor.
The woman accused of pushing her husband to his death.
Convicted of second-degree murder, but was it self-defense?
Your daughter is saying there was a struggle. He stumbled and fell backwards.
They claim she didn't get a fair trial.
The media, they made it out to be the rich girl, the military guy, the plastic surgery family.
You said the police secretly recorded interrogation room footage.
I don't deserve to live.
Then, from behind bars, the beautiful bride.
They painted me as a monster.
You pushed your husband out the window.
Tells her side of the story.
I pushed him off of me.
There were only two people there. One's dead, and you wonder why you're here?
A Dr. Phil exclusive.
Nobody's ever put it like that.
What happened?
You say he grabbed you. What was it you said that triggered him to lunge at you?
On the 25th floor.
Were those the last words he heard from you?
Newlywed murder.
I killed him.
You said, I killed him. I killed him. But those are your words, not mine. Did you push him out that window?
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Starting Wednesday.
Why didn't it occur to you to call 911? I mean, that just seems like the automatic thing.
I know when we were trying to decide what to do, I said, should we call 911 or go in? They said, we'll go in because we don't have insurance and we're not going that far.
But you didn't call 911?
That was like 5 minutes before we went to the hospital. We went, got him out of the bath, thought that he was doing better, but then he was obviously not doing better.
As you just heard, an important red flag for police was that instead of calling 911, Hannah called other people, including her husband, Larry. By the time Larry arrived home, he was in bed, right? You'd taken him, put him in bed. What did you think when you came in, Larry, and saw him? How did he look to you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, he looked like he wasn't feeling well, and I knew that we had just been through a lot with him. I wasn't greatly concerned.
Was there any stretch of the imagination by which you thought an hour from now, hour and a half from now, this child will be in a coma?
No, that was
anything. Was any marker, any indication that suggested that this is going to unravel the way that it did?
No, it was like having the rug ripped out from under you. I mean, it was just a completely unexpected turn of events.
Did you know the medical staff called the police about the two of you when you got there? When you'd been at the hospital, did you know that they were calling the police?
No.
What did you think when you found out they had? Were you shocked, surprised? What was your thinking?
I actually had told my wife, when they came to us that, they're doing their job. They need to look and see if something's happened here. We just go and we be honest. We tell them everything that happened.
Right.
And so we didn't feel like we had anything to hide. We didn't have anything to hide.
So you were completely forthcoming.
Completely forthcoming. We didn't ask for an attorney. We talked to them for hours in that police station.
They said that there were suspicious scratches and bruises on the child.
When we took him to the urgent care center, he had one bruise on his knee and one mosquito bite that had been scratched at. He didn't have these bruises. This is due to the medical condition that he had.
Right.
And the vigorous things that the medical professionals were doing to try to save him.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they discovered that he has salt intoxication. At that point, you two were taken into custody, right?
13 days later.
Yeah.
Or 10 days later.
They were aware of the salt intoxication prior to that.
Once you brought him in and he was turned over to the treatment team there, the physicians there, were you ever allowed to see him again?
When we transferred hospitals, at every hospital, I was allowed to see him until we were taken by the police from Driscoll. At that point, they told us if we went back to the hospital that we would be arrested. And I wasn't allowed to be with him whenever he passed away.
And you were not either?
No.
How did y'all feel about that?
It was horrible.
It was the worst experience to know that someone you love and you care about is passing away and there's nothing you can do, and you can't even be there with them.
And now that you've been released and these charges have been dismissed and all, does that make it seem even more unjust?
No, because I knew that we knew we were innocent from the beginning.
Yeah.
We knew we hadn't done anything.
Why did people that saw you say they were surprised that you didn't seem upset?
I'm pretty, I guess people say that I'm pretty laid back, pretty calm. I don't get real emotional at the time when things happen. It happens later. When I'm in the middle of a tragedy or, I go into mommy mode or nurse mode or whatever you want to call it. But I let down after. And the people that said that also were the people while I was doing CPR. They were the people that were there at the urgent care center while I was doing CPR. And that was what was important to me right then. I didn't have time to be crying.
You were task-oriented at that point. All right, coming up next, something one of Hannah's children said was used in court against her. We'll be right back. You burn human feces-covered sheets on the family grill, and then let's have a barbecue?
Not the best decision, I would agree.
prosecution painted Hannah as an abusive mother who punished Andrew by feeding him a spicy seasoning that led to his death. Their theory was that the two of you straight up killed Andrew and that it was not accidental, that you force-fed him a lethal amount of salt. Did you do that in any form or fashion, purposely, not purposely, in any way?
No.
And they said that you two were negligent in getting him the health care that he needed in a timely fashion once he did fall sick, and that had you done so, that he would be alive today. Did you purposely fail to get him timely medical care?
No.
Did you delay that on purpose in any way?
No.
Did you not do it because it would cost too much to call 911, or that
No.
you didn't want to go to the trouble, or that you were waiting for the salt to kick in so he would die?
No.
That was their allegation, though, correct?
That was their allegation.
They said there were signs of abuse and neglect.
When we took him to the urgent care center, he had one bruise on his knee and one mosquito bite on his arm that had been scratched at.
Now, they also talked about signs of abuse in the home. Were you abusive with this child?
No.
In any way?
No.
No.
What are you doing hosing him down in the backyard? I mean, it sounds like something you see in a movie about prisoners.
He was filthy. I mean, he had smeared his feces all over him.
You have a shower.
I do have a shower, and in retrospect, I probably would have definitely made that decision, looking at it from the other side. But you know, I just wanted to clean him up as quickly as I could.
But you stand a 4-year-old boy naked in the yard and hose him down with a hose. That seems harsh.
It is. It does seem harsh.
And then the sheets that he had defecated all over, you burned them on the grill.
Yes.
Within 24 hours of him passing away, you're burning his sheets on the grill.
Yeah.
You have to admit that seems odd.
It does. I tried putting him in the trash can, but he kept going back to it. And that was my solution to the problem, was to burn them.
Burn them on the grill?
To burn them on the grill so that he could.
Burn human feces on the family grill.
Not the best decision, I would agree.
Could you not put them where he didn't know where they were? Could you burn human feces-covered sheets on the family grill and then let's have a barbecue?
There weren't any barbecues after that.
You have a security camera in his room trained on him.
That was a baby monitor.
And he's sleeping on plywood.
A sleeping bag.
A sleeping bag on plywood. If somebody's trying to make a case of abusive parents, like we've got our kids, now we have a foster kid, and here's his plywood bed. We just burned his sheets on the family grill, hosed him down in the backyard. We're watching him on the camera, and we got him sleeping on a plywood bed. It seems like a double standard between your children and the foster kid.
I can see what you're saying.
People have been troubled that you were laughing during that interrogation.
He started shaking, and he stopped talking. That's when I got scared, and I called Blair. Called him. I said, I don't know what's going on with Andrew, but you need to come home. He's freaking out. I think that's all I told him, because I didn't know how to explain it. I put lots of blankets on him, because he had said he was cold. At first, I wasn't sure if he was just not talking to me because he was mad, you know? But at that point, he was still awake. Just not, you know, he was still breathing, he was still moaning, he was still shaking. I went to school as an EMT, and then I had a baby. I'm going from memory. I got my books out while he's shaking, he's saying he's cold, what can it be? You know? That's very much a scared laugh. If I'm upset or, you know, a nervous laughter, I've been raked over the coals for that for years. I'm very aware of it. But That's what I do.
For this tape?
Yeah. But that's what I do when I get upset.
You just did it again. While they're making all of these allegations, they're sitting on medical evidence that they know doesn't support the allegations.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Cortez was Andrew's pediatrician, and he basically stated that the child was a troubled child, was not a well child. And that is very different than what had been presented. And there is evidence that the testimony that would be given by Dr. Moritz was actually sabotaged schedule-wise by the prosecutor, Sandra Eastwood. And Dr. Moritz's testimony, which they purposely delayed the deposition of so it could not get into evidence, was that the salt poisoning was so acute that calling 911 or not calling 911 would have had absolutely no impact on the outcome whatsoever, and therefore you failing to call 911 was not outcome determinative with this child, and therefore could not be considered causal to his death, and they buried that.
He told me if he was in the room that he wouldn't have done anything differently.
It wouldn't have made any difference. Okay, look, we're going to take a break and come back and talk to the woman who took on Hannah's case and worked tirelessly to set her free. Plus, you won't believe what the key players in the original trial came forward to reveal. We'll be right back.
I don't see any way that a jury would have convicted Hannah Overton. I don't see how a jury would not have been convinced of her innocence.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
Accused of pushing her husband to his death.
Your daughter is saying he stumbled and fell backward.
Murder or self-defense.
I don't deserve to live.
She's digging herself a hole here.
That's tomorrow.
Hannah's appellate attorney, Cynthia Orr, is here today. She believed in Hannah's innocence, worked tirelessly to get the criminal appeals court to overturn Hannah's conviction. Tell us basically what your efforts have focused on here and why we're where we are today.
Well, it was a perfect storm, Dr. Phil. First, the doctors who treated Andrew didn't recognize the signs of sodium intoxication because it's so rare, the coagulopathy, so that every little scratch or bump would result in a bruise or appear to bleed. So he, due to his treatment, looked the worse for wear as time went on, and so the third doctor who saw him thought he'd been abused. But more importantly, what I found was shocking. I found that the prosecution had Andrew's emesis, the first vomit out of his mouth at their urgent care, that revealed exactly what Hannah had fed to him, and it was low sodium content. So the proof of her innocence was there in the prosecution hands the whole time that they tried her.
They conduct this trial, they conduct this prosecution, and they're sitting there with a file saying, we think you have force-fed this child salt to the point of killing the child, and they've got a file right here that says that didn't happen.
That's right.
I understand that Dr. Moritz's deposition was being taken during the trial.
That's right.
Okay, and that Eastwood was delaying the deposition so that it couldn't get completed and therefore entered into trial. Why did defense counsel just not say, look, she's delaying this deposition. I want to halt this trial. I want to complete this deposition. I want it entered into the record, and we're going to have this, or we're not moving forward.
That's exactly what defense counsel said. We should have gone and looked at the video ourselves. We had time. We should have asked for a continuance. We should have done exactly what you suggested.
Which is why you, in part, pled ineffective counsel.
Yes, and counsel wholeheartedly agreed.
Let's take a look at a snippet of what he had to say.
We were relying upon Dr. Moritz, given his testimony, I don't see any way that a jury would have convicted Hannah Overton. Matter of fact, I don't see how a jury would not have been convinced of her innocence. There's probably not a day since this verdict that I don't regret trying to spend more time on this case to do more. And I should have done more. And I've been so.
Well, Hannah and Larry's children are here. They spent 7 years without their mother. They now know why. We'll talk to them when we come back.
If you are going to be in the Los Angeles area and you would like free tickets, go to drphil.com and click on Be in the Audience.
Or you can call 323-461-PHIL. Hannah and Larry's son, Isaac, along with their other children, are here. Investigators question Isaac regarding methods of punishment his mother used with the children. The prosecution used this against his mother. Isaac, I appreciate you being here. And they ask you a question about punishment from your mother, and one of the things you talked about was pepper, right?
They took a Pizza Hut seasoning pepper flake and they stuck it on my tongue as a reminder that my tongue can hurt people. And they stuck it on my tongue, took it off, and gave me some water and said, "You see how it's spicy?" And at that time, it was just a reminder to me to watch my words so that they do not hurt others.
So they didn't fill your mouth up with pepper?
No, absolutely
and
not.
Have you sit there with it for half an hour or anything?
No.
They put a piece of pepper on your tongue and then took it off?
Yes.
Tell me y'all's names going down the line. You're Isaac?
Yes.
And
Isabel. Alicia. Sebastian. Emma.
okay. And your mom was gone for 7 years. And then home. But she stayed really involved in your lives while she was away, correct?
Yes.
Tell me how she did that.
Well, she, every birthday party we ever had, she and some other lady from the church would plan for us. She'd make the cards. She'd write down all the people we were inviting. She'd do everything, basically.
So she was a prison party planner?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a nice little boutique business you're running out of there, prison party planner. What are some of the things that you missed most being there for those 7 years?
I missed everything. I missed their first, lots of things, you know, the first loose tooth, the first day of school for some of them. They grew up. And I missed it.
But in 7 years, some things changed, right? I mean, other than just with the kids, the world changed.
Yes. When I went in, there were only like flip phones, and I came out and everybody's carrying around this little computer in their hand that they call a smartphone.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, everything was different.
Yeah. How did this change her being in prison for 7 years?
You know, I mean, there's some things that we've dealt with that personality-wise, there's a little bit difference there, but not a whole lot. You know, some of the things that we dealt with, I got up in the middle of the night one night to use the restroom and just put my hand on her as I got out of bed, and in her mind, she was still in prison, so it was someone touching her in prison, and it just woke her up in a state of shock. So there have been things along those lines that have been difficult to work through. Mm-hmm. But I think that, you know, we've done remarkably well. So.
Mm-hmm. Next, we're going to talk about why Hannah is going back to the very prison she spent 7 years of her life locked behind bars. We'll talk about that after the break. Want to get something off your chest? Sign up for the drphil.com community and weigh in on your favorite episodes and share your personal stories with other community members. Plus, get started on your own blog to share your thoughts on the topics that interest you most. I'll be reading those message boards. Log on to drphil.com today. You spent 7 years in prison. Now you're out, but you're going back.
I am.
And why are you going back?
One of the things that helped me to walk through that and to get better was that I realized that I had a hope that a lot of these women didn't have. I had my relationship with God. And so I began to share with them and do Bible studies with them and watch them find that hope. And I began to see lives change inside. So we started a nonprofit organization called Syndeo Ministries.
Were they surprised that you came back? Some of the women, they think once you're out of here, you're out of here?
Everybody was surprised because most of them believed that they would never see me again or hear from me again because they'd been forgotten by so many people. And, you know, they were completely surprised that I didn't forget them.
Listen, I appreciate you coming here and sharing this story and, you know, answering all the questions and talking about this. I think, you know, Cynthia, thank you so much for being here and supporting her coming here. And I want to thank you kids for being here. And I know you're very proud of your mom and your dad as well. And I just wish your family the absolute best. What happened to Andrew is a terrible tragedy. His death affected this entire family. Today we remember Andrew Bird, and we wish he and his family peace and healing. We'll see you next time.